So I've got you all on mute so that we can record this session and publish it out on our YouTube channel along with all of our other sessions. If you haven't checked that out yet, please take a few minutes to go out there sometime and take a look at the content. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. There's no obligation, and there's a bunch of great work out there for both UX and classic customers in both English and Spanish. Today, I'm going to talk about the new UX batch management feature. And as I do, I see a couple of you on video. If you give me a thumbs up, can you hear me okay? All right, well, I'm going to begin. Thank you, Tommy. So again, my name is Ken Keller. I am a consultant at Control+M. I've been consulting with Plex for about 11 years, but before that I was a Plex customer dating back about, I can't believe this, but about 17, 18 years ago. And this batch management thing it's got me pretty excited. I'm just going to get started here. So our agenda today is what is batch management? It's a new enhancement which was included in the summer 2021 release. Actually came out on July 22nd. The reason it's got me so excited is I was working with a Plex customer maybe 6 years ago, and they weren't food and beverage. They were a process manufacturer that blended oil, and they had barges that carried about 500,000 gallons of crude oil and needed to drop that into a large tank where they blended. And obviously that could cause some issues if they overfilled. And so batch management is going to support that, and you'll see how that happens during the presentation. I'm going to give you a Plex definition of what batch management is. It's always best to hear straight from the horse's mouth. I'm going to give you an example and show you how to get it. There are setup tables involved, work centers, process routings, approved work centers, but you all own this. It's not a module that you need to purchase. It's just a setup on the setup tables. Really not a lot of settings involved here, if any, really, either. Where do we use it and what does it do? I'm going to show you how it's used on the job manager, job operations, how we can edit batches, reschedule batches, talk about why you should use it. And then if you want to see it, I'll take you through Plex for a quick tour. Then we'll have a Q&A. All right, so to begin, what's the Plex definition of batch management? Batch management enables flexible scheduling of production runs using kettles, mixers, tanks, or other work centers with fixed capacities. So if you think about that example I gave, where we had a customer with, trying to offload large amounts, quantities of a liquid into a tank that obviously had a fixed capacity, that could cause some issues. So in Plex, the work center and the location are virtual. So you could, in theory, create a container of an inventory of 1 million gallons or more and place that at a location in Plex with an actual limited capacity of 400 gallons in reality. So I did that. I actually added 1 million gallons of chicken broth to my PCN, put it in a location called the mixer that if it was physical, maybe only had a 400 gallon capacity, and Plex would let me do it. Standard Plex would let me do it. That's not the reality, and it would be a lot to manage. So how do we manage this? How do we tell Plex that mixer only can handle 400 gallons? That's what batch management's all about. So due to the reality of that limited vessel, tank, kettle sizes, you're going to hear me use tank, kettle, vessel, work center kind of interchangeably here today. But most process manufacturing customers use batch sizes to manage those job quantities, which are greater than the actual vessel size. Oftentimes your customer order or your job is going to be larger than the capacity of your work center. So I've thrown out an example here where I have 2 kettles, and one kettle can hold 400 gallons. That's kettle number 1. Kettle number 2 can hold 200 gallons. And I'm going to create a job of 1,000 gallons. most Plex customers would handle those in batches. And there are variations of those batches in terms of size that would all equal up to 1,000 gallons, the job size. In my example, I said, okay, we're going to create two batches, batch number 1 and batch number 2 in kettle number 1. Since its capacity is 400 gallons, I'm going to create one batch at 400 gallons and one batch at 200 gallons. That gives me 600 gallons so far. So then I've got this kettle number 2 over here with 200 gallons. I can run in series with that other job or in parallel with the other job. And I can run at its capacity of 200 gallons and a batch number 4 at 200 gallons. So all told there, I could have, let's add that up, 1,000 gallons, which is my job size. A lot of you are doing this already, but you're managing this kind of outside of Plex by just adding batch sizes. Batch management will allow us to handle that inside of Plex. So again, what is batch management? Again, using Plex definitions, so I'm not putting words in their mouth here. Each cycle of filling a vessel and producing a quantity of product constitutes a batch. And we'll call that a constant there. Batches can be processed in series or in parallel across multiple work centers of varying capacities. Pre-processing operations, for example, chopping vegetables, are also scheduled and managed to match the sizes of the scheduled batches. So it's just a pre-process within the batch. I'm not going to show that today, but I will show you how to set it up. Batch management provides the following benefits. You can optimize equipment and scheduling capacity by scheduling and producing jobs in batches, and also reduce material losses and scrap. Anyone else having any trouble hearing me? Okay. Looks like everyone can hear me. That's great. All right. So how do I get it? I set this up as, usually when I'm giving these presentations, at some point in the presentation, I tell you how old I am. I did earlier telling you I've been using Plex for about 17 years and consulting for around 11 years. So usually when I present something, it's something that I've been utilizing for a while. I'll be honest with you, this came out July 22nd of this year. So although I knew that Plex was working on it, I didn't get to see it until it came out. So this is fairly new to me in setting it up. And I have to tell you, it is one of the easier things to set up in Plex. I was really quite pleased with how easily it was to configure for this presentation. So we've got a work center type setup table where we just add a work center type of batch. Most of you in your PCNs already have a work center type of primary, maybe bin for bin with the allow bin for bin flag on, or a Kanban work center type. So all we do is add a work center type called batch and make sure that we select the little flag there on the work center type setup table for batch, and we're good to go. Next, we go to the part op type. So not the part type, but the part operation type. And we can add that pre-process part op type, but we're going to talk about the batch op type. And again, there's a batch flag that we turn on. So work center type, part op type setup tables will be required to be set up. Then, since we're going to be scheduling batches when we schedule jobs, we create a job op batch status, just like we would schedule job operation status. And pretty easy to set up. I just recommend these 4 statuses: active, complete, active and hold, so you can put a job on hold, or canceled, and the corresponding flag. So active would have the active flag and maybe be the default when we create jobs or batches. Complete would have the completed status. Active and hold would have the hold status, and cancel would have the canceled flag turned on. We would also need to configure work centers for batch management. So we would add work centers with that work center type of batch that I created on the earlier slide. So I've created a work center code here called Kettle 1. I've called it my 400-gallon tank. I've selected the work center type of batch, which I added to that setup table earlier. And that's really all I need to do. The rest of it is just setting up a normal work center, making sure you click that schedule flag. That's always the tough one. Next, we would configure our process routing. We would set up the process routing to include a process type, which is also right here, which is also called the part op type of batch. So that's that setup table for part op type that we set up. Little hint, just be sure that the process code or the operation code has the variable bomb flag checked if we're doing a batch process. We'll also need to configure approved work centers. So on the process routing, you'll add the approved work centers with standard batch sizes and minimum batch sizes. So when we created our work center and we created a work center type called batch, that actually put new fields on the approved work center that allowed us to add our batch size. So this would be our maximum capacity, and then a minimum batch size. So if I schedule work center kettle number 1, my standard batch size is going to be 400. That's my capacity, and my minimum would be 50. No sense in making something that's less than 50, let's say. Kettle number 2 has a capacity of 200, and I also have a minimum batch size of 50. This is going to give me a lot of flexibility here when I use batch management to schedule, because I could schedule, let's say I chose my example, I chose a nice round number of 1,000. That doesn't always work out that way. So what if I was going to schedule a job for 950? I would want Plex to be able to give me that number rather than some round number. So adding that minimum batch size of 50 should do the trick for us. We'll then schedule the batches from the job manager application. Once we've got all our setup tables set up, we've got our approved work centers set up in the process routing. We would then add a job as normal using the job manager. So in this case, I'm going to create a job for an item I'm calling vegetable soup bulk. The job is going to be 1,000 gallons. And then once I go to add that job, because we're scheduling to work centers that are batch type, the part op type on the process routing is also batch. Plex is going to, instead of showing me my operations where I select the operations and approved work centers, it's going to add me a little more detail to that. And it's going to allow me to add the split type and scheduled quantity. The split type selections are either even or remainder. In my example here, I've chosen remainder, but if I had chosen even, what it would do is it would say, okay, I'm scheduling a job for 1,000. I'm going to make 500 in this and 500 in that work center, okay? With the remainder, what's going to happen is, since the capacity is 400, I'm going to schedule one batch for 400 and then the last batch for 200 for a total of 600. I selected remainder as the split type for kettle number 2, which has a capacity of 200. And so it's going to schedule one batch of 200 and a second batch of 200 for a total of 400. That 600 plus 400 gives me the job total of 1,000. Hopefully that makes sense. We're going to dive into Plex a little later so you can actually see it in action. After setting that split type and scheduled quantity, you'll click the add button and to add the new job. If the scheduled quantity doesn't match the job operation quantity, Plex will ask you if you'd like to continue. So I'm gonna hit the back button here. So if this 600 and 400 didn't add up to the job quantity of 1,000 for some reason, just by the way that I scheduled this, maybe it would have something to do with minimum batch sizes. Plex will give us this question. The scheduled quantity does not match the job operation quantity. Continue. Feel free to click yes, because batches can always be rescheduled. So to view or reschedule batches, now that I've added my job, I'll select the job in the job manager. So here I'm going to look at job number 8. 1,000. Then I've got, I could look at job number 9 or 10 out there, but I've got job number 8. You see the edit job here. I'll click that button. And from the job detail button in the action bar, we'll select the batches option in that drop-down list from the job detail button. And that's going to show me my batches that were scheduled by batch management. So all I did was create a job. And then I told Plex I want to make 600 of the 1,000 in kettle 1 and 400 of the 1,000 in kettle 2. And then batch management took over. So batch management is scheduled to run one 400-gallon and one 200-gallon batch in kettle 1. Two 200-gallon batches in kettle 2, which would equal my 1,000. To reschedule those batches, you'll click on the Reschedule Batches button in the action bar. So there are my 4 batches and my batch sizes and my work centers. 2 in kettle 1, 2 in kettle 2, 600 total, 400 in the first batch, 200 in the second batch for kettle 1, and 200 batches for kettle 2. If I want to reschedule that, I can click the Reschedule Batches button. And there I can add a batch and remove a batch, and I can even change the batch size and quantity after I've created that job. So batch sizes can be edited. Plex is selecting these batch sizes based upon my work center setup, but I can always override it. So next question is, why should I use it? And big questions would be, are you a process or food and beverage manufacturer? The answer is yes. Likely you're already producing in batches and therefore could use this new enhancement. Are your work centers and locations tanks and pipes? Plex customers come from all different industries, and many of them produce into containers, a box, a bin. If you think about maybe your end product and finished goods, maybe those things are in boxes and cases and bottles and such. But if you're mixing in tanks and pipes, likely you're already utilizing batches. If your job quantities are often greater than the physical capabilities of your work centers, that would be another great reason to use the new Plex batch management. And do you produce in batches at various operations? So let's say I'm making something, I got 5 different operations. I can batch those pre-processed batches and batch those mixes at various operations. So next is, do you want to see it? Do you want to see this in Plex? So you don't mind, I'm going to go right into Plex here. We're going to take a look at the job manager. So let's just add a job. I'm going to add a job here for this item that I'm calling vegetable soup bulk. The example I gave was 1,000. Let's don't use 1,000. Let's use, let's use that example I gave of 950 gallons. Okay. I'm going to choose my job building, give it a due date here. So all I've done is told Plex I want to make a job for vegetable soup bulk, and my job is for 950 gallons. I'm going to click OK. Next, what's going to pop up is my job operations with my capacity shown for my approved work centers. So my job is for 950. If I make this even and I say, let's see, I want to make, if I want to make this even, I want to make 500 in that one. And I'm going to make 500. My last batch is going to be 200 here. So that's 750. 200 for my capacity here. And look at that. So I've got 2 batches here. One's going to be for 400. The other's going to be for 250, 650, 850. So let's make this 300. Now I'm up to 800, right? So I'm going to do 500 here and 450 there. That's going to give me my 950. Does it make sense? All right. I'm going to click OK. Job number 11 was created. So look at job number 11. And again, as I showed you in the presentation, if I had not added that up, so if my batches didn't equal my job quantity of 950, I could always come back and reschedule this thing or add batches or whatever. But in this case, I'm just going to edit the job, go to the job detail, look at my batches, and there it is. So 5 batches were created, 2 batches coming out of kettle number 1 and 3 batches in kettle number 2. And it all has to do with the way that I scheduled that. I scheduled 500 in kettle number 1, and I scheduled 450 in kettle number 2. Kettle number 2 has a capacity of 200, and my split type was even. So it created 3 batches of 150 that equals the 450 that I scheduled. I chose that even type for batch size for kettle 1. And so it has a capacity of 400, but because I chose even, it chose 2 batch sizes of 250 for my total of 500. All right, so let's go back and do this again. I'm going to add the same number job, or the job for the same amount. Vegetable soup, 950. We're going to make a lot of soup today. Okay. And it tells me, hey, this 950 can be merged into an existing job. Do you want to merge jobs? That's just a setting that allows for merging of jobs. I'm going to say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to create a new job. So in this case, instead of choosing even, I'm going to choose that remainder. And here, I'm going to do the same thing. 500 in this one, 450 in that one. Equals my 950. Click OK. Job number 12. So now if I look at job number 12, select it, edit job, look at my batch. It created my 5 batches here, and in kettle number 1, it scheduled a 400 batch and a 100 gallon batch for my total of 500 because the capacity is 400, and I chose the remainder type versus the even type. And in kettle number 2, it scheduled 3 batches. My capacity is 200, so 2 full capacity jobs, or excuse me, batches of 200, and then the 50 was remaining. Now remember when I set that up, I said my minimum is 50, so that's why it broke it up that way. All right, so what's that look like then, let's say at the control panel. So if I go to the control panel, and look at kettle number 1 or kettle number 2, but let's look at kettle number 1 and go to my job dispatch list from the control panel. I should see 3 or 4 jobs that are scheduled here, and I see each one of those has batches associated with them. So these were the 2 that we just scheduled. These were the 2 that I scheduled for my demo today. These are the 2 that I just scheduled a moment ago. So if I look at the 2 that I just scheduled a moment ago, I can click on the batch number and see that I've got 2 batches here scheduled for kettle number 1, and one's for 400 and one's for 100. At least in job number 12, it's done that way. All right. So what's it look like if I select one of these things? I'm going to select job number 11, the first one I did, which was the even one. And I'm going to log in. Production. If I go to record production, it should be a variable bomb production method here. Yeah, it is. and you see it's filling in my batch quantity right there. Okay. Now I can see batches 1 and 2, batches 1 and 2. So pretty simple stuff if we're set up correctly. We go back out and into our presentation here. And ask for any questions. So now that we're at the questions portion of the presentation, feel free to unmute yourself and to ask questions or ask questions in the chat. I'll be checking those out there too. But thank you very much. And let's begin with questions if you have any.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So this is Tyler with Horizon Technology.
Hi, Tyler.
One question I did have with the batches is there any type of system that would kind of optimize your batches so you're not doing that calculation? It's saying it's the most efficient to do 2 batches of 400 and 1 batch of 200, or is it pretty simplified that it's kind of all
yeah, actually there could be. The question would be, what are those variables that make one more efficient than the other?
Right. Yeah, I didn't know if it would tie into, you know, some of the other like.
It does work. It does work with finite scheduling. I didn't have finite scheduling turned on with this, but finite scheduling would give you the opportunity to find the most efficient method in terms of resources. So maybe it's most efficient because it's a like product and it doesn't require sanitation jobs in between. Or maybe it uses similar or the same ingredients from one product to the next. So yeah, or maybe just capacity. So it does have enhanced ability to look at most efficient methods for scheduling batch sizes as it's integrated with other modules in Plex.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had one more question.
Yes, sir.
So it doesn't seem like this is the right setup for us, but we have some, you know, continuous operations using cells.
Yes.
And where, you know, we take a raw material, we're powdered metal, so we press it into a part and then we convey it, it gets centered and all that. Would you think of using a batch for that type of situation or stick with the cell? Just curious. It doesn't sound like it's right, but maybe.
Yeah, good question. So the thing about a cell is it requires some production operation at the end, and that's going to kind of record the production through that cell and pass it through. So the advantage of the cell really comes down to usually the costing side of things, to where we can say, hey, the cost has increased for whatever it is that I'm making because it has passed through this operation and the approved work centers on that op. But if it's a cell, I don't have to produce it, but when I produce it at the final production operation, it allows me to pass through. So it shows that it went through that operation. And then if I scrap at that cell operation, which I can do, then I'm scrapping at the proper cost. The cost at the cell operation. I do think it's different. But it can work in a process that includes a cell, but just not the same operation. So I could have a process routing that has cells and this batch management operations in them.
Okay, good to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Good ones so far.
Has this been deployed in a barbecue sauce operation, Ken?
It should be. Like I said, if you have tanks of limited capacities, you should absolutely be using this.
All right, good to hear that.
Yes. Right. So it's very easy to set up, and it does take some of that math that I've seen take place on batch sheets out of the equation. Yeah. And you saw how it actually pre-populated the batch size at the control panel. So the operator just needs to say, oh, okay, this is what I'm making and this is how much I'm making in this batch. And I see this job has 2 batches at this work center. It is pretty easily edited, as I showed too, where we can reschedule. I really didn't reschedule anything in my demo, but I did show you that it could be done where I can remove from one kettle and move to the next, or even change the batch sizes. So, you know, if we can determine those efficiencies on the fly and change based upon changing environment, even after the job has been started. All right, any other questions? Doesn't look like we have anybody in chat. One more time, any last questions and we'll move on? All right, well, I do want to let you all know that our next session will be held Wednesday, October 6th at noon Eastern. And it's back with new topics, a real popular session called Geek Speak. It will be presented by our own Veronica Meyer. The topics that will be included are the new component host version 1.3.5 and physical printers. Don't ask me what that is, ask Veronica. The Chrome V93 update. So IE is going away and printing checks in Chrome will be a topic. The whitelist IP addresses, Plex system statuses, any other known issues that that she'll be rolling out and talking to you about, or in the Q&A, any issues that you may have from the geek perspective or tech perspective, I should say. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. We understand that your time is valuable. We appreciate you spending some of it with us today. Please don't forget our YouTube channel. Go out there and watch the videos. There are a bunch of them out there now. Learn some new tricks and leave us some feedback. Thank you all and have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.